Hello, this is going to be the first section of our expressions unit. So when we get started with this, we are going to focus mostly on the vocabulary to start. That's what this video is going to cover. And then the next video is going to cover writing expressions after you do an activity with a partner. All right, so right now, I guess before we go there, you should have your note packet and you should be copying down the definitions. We are going to stick with very specific definitions. So when you copy them down, we're going to copy exactly like the slide, and then we are going to work from there. So our first word is a variable. And a variable is used to represent an unknown number. When we are picking a variable, this can be any letter. So first you should copy down this definition. And then in the box for the variable definition, a little note we're going to write is it can be any letter. Typically we use X and Y because those don't look very similar to numbers, but we can use any letter from the alphabet. All right, our next word is term. And a term is a number, a variable, or a number with a variable. So go ahead, write that definition down on your note packet. Some examples of a term would be we could have 2, 3, X, Y, negative 2X, 4Y, or 10Y. These are all individual terms. Notice some are negative while others are positive. Some are just numbers, 2 and 3, while others are just letters or variables, X and Y, and some are both combined. These are examples of terms. The following word is expression. An expression is a group of terms with no equal sign. Some examples of an expression would be if we had 2x minus 3. That would be an expression. An example of something that would not be an expression would be 2x equals 3. That is not an expression because it had an equal sign. So because of that equal sign, not an expression. But this one is an expression. Then our next word is product. Now this is review from our last chapter, so hopefully this definition is not new to you. That is two terms being multiplied. And we talked about how a term could be a number, a variable, or a number with a variable. When we write a number with a variable, we always write the number first, and then the variable second. So for example, if we did the product of a variable X and 2, we would write the number first and then the variable second. So the product of the number X and 2, or the variable X and 2, would be 2X. And when they're next to each other, remember that means multiplying. Our next word, this one is more of a phrase. This is other words that can mean multiply. So we might use the phrase times, double, which means times 2, or we might use the word triple, which means times 3. These are other phrases that are commonly used in math. that also mean we are multiplying by a value. Next, we have quotient, and this is again review from last chapter. So quotient is when two terms are being divided. When we are talking about the quotient, we are going to write it as a fraction. So we are going to write the quotient as a fraction. So an example of that, quotient of 4 and 3. Quotient means dividing, and we would write this as a fraction. Whichever one comes first goes on the top of our fraction. So our fraction would be 4 over, and then the 3 would go on the bottom. And that's an example of writing a quotient. The first value, number, or variable goes on top, and the second one goes on the bottom. Next, we have some other words that mean divide as well. That could be split, divide, and share equally. So sometimes we might use the word quotient, other times we might use one of these. But all of these mean divide. Then we have sum, which is also from last time. Sum is two terms being added. And when we add, the order doesn't matter, so you can add in any order that you would like. That might be something you want to put down here. Order does not affect answer. Then next we have other words that mean add. Sometimes we might say more than. So if it's 2 more than 6, we would do 6 plus 2. Additionally, we have an additional or additionally. And then increased by would also mean we would add. Then our last big one is difference, and that is when two terms are being subtracted. One thing is when we write difference is the first value always goes first when we write it. So if we said the difference of 3 and 6, whichever term shows up first has to be first when we write the difference, 3 minus 6. So it has to show up first when we write our expression. Good. Some other words that we might use when we're talking about subtraction is less than, minus, and then take away. All of these are other phrases that we might use for subtracting. Good. So then you are going to pause here and you are going to play the memory game. If you are not in school, make sure that you ask about this while you are back in the classroom so that you can have this opportunity. This is something that we are going to do where you can either work on it independently. So if you don't have someone at the same spot as you, you can work on that. Or if there are other people in the same spot on this problem, then you can play memory as a partner review game. And that way you guys can practice identifying the vocab word and then the definition that go together.